Nurse TV, brought to you by HESTA and the Australian Nursing Federation.
Nurses have a reputation for working hard and playing hard, and that's certainly in hospital training seemed to be the way it was.
It would have to be the friendships that I made out of that group made me a better nurse, training that way through the hospital.
The hospital-based training seemed like a good idea. I'm sort of one that likes to learn from practical experience.
And to actually get trained as well as to get paid for your work and to feel valued was a real bonus.
Group 287 really is the second group to start their nursing training in 1987 at the Royal Melbourne Hospital. There were 3 groups a year, so we were the June-July group, hence the 2 designation, and 87 just referred to the year.
Coming from the country was a good opportunity to move away and broaden your horizons a little bit.
And when I received that letter, I was ecstatic. It was really all I wanted at that point in time.
I'd only ever heard fantastic things, and that's where the best nurses came out of. So I went thinking, fantastic, I've got into one of the best places to train as a nurse.
Well, we all moved into the nurses' residence on the Sunday afternoon, and we all met downstairs and we got to know each other, and we had a practice trial run of putting on our uniform, which is the big starched apron, and then the following day we had our first day of PTS training, which was preliminary training school.
You learn how to feed patients, you learn how to wash patients, you learn how to give injections there, so you had oranges and you had to inject an orange because it was to get the feel of how hard you actually had to push a needle in. How to make a bed, which was exceptionally important in those days, that you got your corners right. Really, PTS was about how do you actually provide basic nursing care for patients.
I don't remember feeling afraid at that time because I think already you had a sense that there were a lot of people coming together and you just appeared already to kind of have a sense that you were cohesive.
I think the relationship worked both ways. Basically, we were getting an education. At the same time, we were providing them with a workforce. But it was a mutual relationship and it was sort of like a win-win situation.
Study blocks, and you had practical rotations as well. So your study blocks might have been 4 or 6 weeks, a fairly intense study.
And then we'd have an exam at the end of it. So by the end of the 3rd or the 5th week, we were getting a bit stressed. Everyone was sort of staying in the nursing home and study their butts off because we knew if you failed, you're out.
It was sometimes very confronting, the things that you faced, but again I think that added to the experience and your ability to cope in difficult situations.
On that first day, absolutely petrified because you were going in to do some basic care on people who are actually in hospital and sick.
We were only 18 years old and there I was sort of, on this burns ward and holding burnt limbs up while other people dress them, and I remember just thinking, what am I doing here?
There was obviously a lot of sick people and a lot going on, so you were pretty new to all of that, and you really were, very aware of your lack of knowledge.
That, it's a big shock to the system at that age, and I don't know if I was really prepared for it. And I remember an older lady, I was doing a blood pressure on her, and she asked me, how was my blood pressure? And I told her what it was, and she said, is that good? And I thought, I don't know if it's good or not because we were still so new to the job.
The patient was strict rest in bed, the charge nurse had said that patient is not to get out of bed for anything, and you followed those orders. There were reasons why people couldn't get out of bed, but so the male patient said, I need to go to the toilet, I need to get out of bed, and the nurse said, I'm really sorry, you can't get out of bed. And he said, I'm not using a pan, I've got to get out of bed. So she came up and she's thinking, and the patient was adamant, and you have to try and look after your patient as well. So we walked into the room and you could see the patient's head above the curtains. The patient was on the commode chair on the bed. And I'm not joking. But they're the kinds of things that you take literally what you're told and you come up with ways that you can try and fix them.
But I do know that as hospital trained nurses, we had to learn very quickly basic nursing care. Because we had 8 patients, the ratio back then was 1:8, not 1:4.
You did really find your feet, and the first year you didn't. Often you were really feeling like you knew so little, and you were very aware of that. And the expectation that you felt on yourself that you should know more, and why do I have to ask this for the 3rd time running, but I just have to.
You were doing full shifts, a proper working roster right from the start.
You had night shifts, you had short shifts where you might finish at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night, and then you'd have to return at 7 o'clock the next morning. That was pretty physically and emotionally exhausting.
We were dealing with, death and dying at the age of 18, and, you've got relatives there, and, you're learning to talk to people about things like that at a really young age.
There were days that you'd rather forget, but on the whole, we generally just took it in our stride and accepted that was the part of training and part of being a student nurse.